Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murder Talking News. And I am so late, and I apologize for this, but we have the Lori Vallow trial coming up, and that's coming up on April 3rd of 2023. This is the case where it first started off back in 2019, December mainly, when it broke news that there was a little girl and a little boy that went missing, and police were concerned about their whereabouts. And after a lot of chaos, which, if you're not familiar with this case, you can check out our older videos, we find out that the two kids were found in the backyard of Chad Daybell, which is Lori Vallow's fifth husband. This is in Rexburg, Idaho, and there was just so much drama, so much chaos, and so much evil attached to this case. So, along with the update that Lori Vallow's case is coming up, her trial, April 3rd, this is going to include picking a jury and preparing for trial. And once trial actually gets started, this could take 6 to 10 weeks. That's what we're hearing, for justice to happen. And the families that are involved with this, well, it's going to be hard to go through. Here's the sad part, too. Judge Boyce is not allowing cameras nor live audio in the courtroom during Lori Vallow's trial. While many of us understand that he has to take caution in how he approaches this case because it's such a high profile case from all over the world, and family members, friends, they feel cheated. We always had the fight to have the camera in the courtroom, to be honest, and he did allow it at one time, but sadly these professionals went in there and made a mockery, basically. They were zooming in on her finger. And of course, a lot of people, they just went to town on the footage that they got. Lori and her attorneys, well, they decided, this was not acceptable, that this could affect her case in a negative way. So you definitely can't go in there and bully the woman on trial who hasn't been deemed guilty yet, even if we feel she probably is. So many of us were hoping that they would allow for audio at least, but no. And definitely family and friends that are involved with this case don't deserve to be punished for what the media and other media sources made this story into. But here we are. We have to wait until the end of the trial each day for Nate Eaton to share the audio. And guys, this is not cheap. It's gotten better since the last time I heard, but it's like $5 for the first 20 minutes, then 25 cents each minute after that. What we're hearing is Nate says it's going to end up costing approximately $60 a day. So you can add that up. That's like $60 a day times, I guess, 4 or 5 days for around 6 to 10 weeks. Now we know that this case was actually a joined case between Chad Daybell, Lori's fifth husband, and Lori Vallow. Chad Daybell's attorney, John Pryor, had actually asked for the case to be severed, but that was denied. But finally, Judge Boyce decided, okay, yeah, we're going to have to sever the case. One of the leading factors and that was the fact that Lori Vallow, she didn't waive her right to a speedy trial, so guess what? She's going to trial ASAP, and Chad Daybell, well, they want to kind of push theirs back. We've been hearing Chad Daybell's attorney address Lori as Lori Vallow instead of Lori Daybell. This has actually fueled a little bit of speculation, saying that there's a possibility Chad wants, no longer to be associated with Lori. But that's gossip. We don't know. Now, one of the reasons that Chad Daybell doesn't want to be trialed alongside his wife is the fact that he feels it might be an unfair advantage to be next to a woman, and that since he's a man, that he could be charged a harsher punishment. So now there's going to be 2 trials, and this is going to cost a bit. So what we're hearing is this trial is going to run around $3.6 million. And since there's no camera or audio that can be feed live, well, imagine how much that's going to cost for out of town families to attend weeks long trial. You'll have to eat, you'll have to have somewhere to sleep, so you'll most likely be staying in a hotel unless you have friends there. If you need to work, well, guess what? You're not going to be able to. And another place that these cameras would have been beneficial is the fact that there are several family members, especially attached to people like Tammy Daybell, who is a victim in this case, no longer here, who wants to avoid the media circus altogether. You have a few who crave it, and then you have a lot more that try to hide from it. Well, this is going to actually push them out in the open so that they can be attacked more by the media. And if they decide that's not worth it, well, they're not going to be able to see what's going on in court. So I think maybe he should allow the cameras, or at least audio, and had a little bit more control over how the cameras um, handled their filming. Now, just recently, Lori's attorney was in a hearing, and he was there to represent Lori Vallow and said that he was speaking to her every single day about this case. And if she still wanted to do, her speedy trial. According to him, this was going to make it difficult on him to defend her properly because he's not had time to go through all the evidence. So you got to remember they have tactics, and prosecutors, most times when they do submit evidence to the defense, they will put in so much extra work, words, anything they can. And that makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of go through this evidence quick, as well as sometimes, thoroughly. And during that time, they didn't know whether the case was going to be severed or not. They said even if they did sever the case, prosecutors actually discovered new DNA evidence. They're not sure what kind of evidence it is, but if it is exculpatory evidence, well, that could be something to benefit their client. If Lori Vallow chooses to continue on a speedy trial path, well, this could affect her, or maybe not. They might not get anything from testing. Now, remember, Lori Vallow was arrested in February of 2020, and here we are 3 years later, March 2nd of 2023, just over 3 years, right? Since the day she was first arrested. So this puts a lot of pressure on the judge to make sure that she does get that speedy trial that she's asking for. Daybell, on the other hand, well, he waived his right to a speedy trial and is asking for more time. The attorney knows that if this is a exculpatory evidence, well, this could actually support the innocence of his defendant, possibly anyways. So I heard him mention something about the Brady disclosure. And so this is from prosecution, where they're holding back some evidence, which includes a collected evidence, which could be something like exculpatory evidence that could exonerate a defendant. But Judge Boyce ultimately said, this isn't really, that doesn't apply to the Brady disclosure. But it is. It's, prosecutors must follow the code of ethics and turn over all evidence relating to the defendant. But here's the thing, the evidence that they're having tested, they really, like I said earlier, they have no idea if this is exculpatory evidence or if it's something else. It could have been just the dog's DNA. People don't know. So what happens if, Lori goes through with this speedy trial and this evidence turns out to be something more? Let's say it's exculpatory evidence that could have helped her defense. So will this cause any issues? Can this be used, as a way to get a retrial or anything else? Well, Chad's attorney is smart. He says, well, as for Chad, He has due process rights and will be granted the right to prepare for his defense based off the results of that test. Well, here's the thing, prosecutors, they were concerned about Lori's defense team, and which is attached to this evidence. And let's say that she goes to trial. Prosecutors are wanting to know if they're able to put on the record that they know that this evidence is coming in and they understand that and are proceeding with this trial anyway. And the prosecutors say, well, we want them to put on record, they understand this. And the defense team for Lori said, no, we refuse to answer that question. We also heard mention from her defense team of, of her mental illness. That was mentioned multiple times, and they made sure it was put on record that, the court recognized that she's dealing with some mental issues, and a hint also that medical staff have also admitted that she has some type of mental issue. Well, we know in the state of Idaho, they cannot use, insanity plea at all. But there are a few loopholes they might can manipulate for at least a time period. I also wondered if, they were kind of leading up or hinting that there may be a plea deal. That's just speculation. It just doesn't make sense that Lori's team, knowing that there's a possibility of exculpatory evidence out there, and they want to continue on with trial. Her attorneys said that they will continue to speak to their client every single day and, see what she wants to do. Ultimately, they have to do what she wants. But it seems like, possibly they'd rather her not take the speedy trial path. They made it more than obvious that they are not prepared, they are not ready for the dump that they've received, on top of the extra new information on the exculpatory evidence. I say that, but they do not know what kind of evidence it is. There's a possibility it's exculpatory evidence. Of course, the defense is arguing that the prosecutors are slow at getting their evidence over to the defense. And of course, that's their job, is to point out, whatever problems or mistakes that the state makes to try to get, the advantage for their client. When prosecutors tried to get Lori's defense team to acknowledge the fact that this DNA evidence, well, it's going to come in after they go to trial, Judge Boyce says, I really can't make them do too much, basically because this is their strategy. So right now, prosecutors, families, other attorneys, we're trying to figure out what is the defense strategy, especially since we have to wait and see, is we know that we have a date for trial, but are there going to be, some things that go wrong again? This is going to be a problem because you have families from out of town who are preparing right now to head there and sit there for weeks. And as a judge, well, he has to be fair, but he's also probably should start thinking about the families and all of them and, take a little bit more control of this court. And I do think that cameras should be allowed, but it's his courtroom. Now, something I did notice was Lori's attorney seemed to be a little frustrated with her client. The fact that she, she just does want to do this speedy trial, and they are just not wanting to do that. And like I said earlier, he said he will continue to talk to his client and see what she wants to do every single day as trial dates approach. So what we know about Lori Vallow is she is one to make things difficult. Usually she fights tooth and nail to go to court, to get mental evaluations. But for some reason, she's pushing to move forward. And what does this say? And what does this mean for Chad Daybell now that he has been granted the severance and granted a later date? Is this an opportunity for him to see what's going to happen through her trial? Can this actually benefit Chad Daybell in some way. I think it will, and I think it also give him more time to think about a plea deal, whether or not he's going to do that, whether the prosecutors are going to allow that. This can happen even during trial. What we understand is we know that Lori Vallow knows that her children are no longer here on earth. And she will either have to come to terms by listening to witnesses and professional witnesses, or she can continue to smirk at the world thinking that we are all idiots. What I found interesting was the fact that her attorney, we couldn't figure out if he's being sarcastic or not, but you know, his client could wait or think that Jesus is coming to get her. If that's the case, she believes that, in the second coming is still in progress and that all of this is happening and she has nothing to worry about because Jesus is going to make sure that she gets through it. Why did he mention something like that? I think that is key to their tactic, whatever that is in the future. So let's talk about what is very heartbreaking about this case is the fact the families attending this trial. It will be the most emotional part of this whole ordeal. And there's going to be more than one trial. But this first trial, well, that's going to be something that's really going to open the doors to a lot of pain, bring back a lot of those memories and emotional states that they already experienced once. And I'm hoping, that's not the case because Lori's going to be looking for them to be in pain. That's going to be her satisfaction. Unless somehow that medicine treatment that she's been getting opened her eyes. And so this is going to apply to even Lori's family. So her parents, her siblings, they will have to be, it's going to be up to them in this case to fight those overwhelming emotions that will be sweeping over them. One thing many of the victims in this case are going to have to do is, fight this, stand strong, and be there for their loved ones, especially people like Kay and Larry Woodcock. They'll be representing their grandchild, JJ Vallow, in this trial. And it's going to be hard because it's going to be so emotional. There's going to be so much emotion, relief, anger, disappointment, sadness, and then reality hitting all at once. You got to remember that JJ was their grandbaby. They absolutely adore JJ. And they've got a lot more. They have several more trials to go through. You still have the trial that's going to be, so this is going to be for JJ, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell. You got 2 trials just for that. And then you have the trial for Kay Woodcock's brother, Charles Vallow. So Charles Vallow was the guy that was shot back in Arizona by Lori Vallow's brother, Alex Cox, who died supposedly of natural causes back in December of 2019 after the kids disappeared. So while the most important process to take place, at least for the Woodcock family, it's going to be tough and exhausting for them. And that is just based off the caliber of damage that this couple, Lori and Chad, created. Just having to relive those events and emotions over and over 4 years straight. And it's one of the most difficult processes that anyone can ever go through. Because you got to remember, before that December 2019, Larry and Kay Woodcock, they were starting to come to terms to what was really possibly happening within that family. The chaos, the murders, the attacks. And they were fighting tooth and nail to try to prevent it from happening to JJ, but it failed. Not from their lack of trying. The law was working against them. And Lori was manipulating every door she could. The fact that Lori knew that Kay and Larry weren't going to give up, and the fact she kept doing what she was doing, what does that say? Either she believed she was untouchable, or she thought she was in the right and God was going to save her. But no doubt that the what ifs and if onlys still exist in the mind of that couple. I just hope that Judge Boyce will think of the families and at least allow them live audio. What do you guys think about what's going on? Are you excited about the trial coming up? Do you believe that that trial is going to take place? And if it does, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Lori may have a plea deal on the table? If she does, do you think she would take it? Do you think she'll ever wake up and take accountability for the actions that she took? Well, all I can do is say I send my love out to all the families involved in this case. It's not going to be easy for any of them. And I look forward to Nate Eaton sharing the audio with us after each day of that trial. Thank you, East Idaho News, for all the coverage on this story. Guys, do not forget that we have faces that continue to go on missing out there. They're very important to us, many of them being children. Dulce, Summer Wells, pregnant women like Kiera Coles and Jasmine Robinson. We're here years later and we still have no answers. Thank you so much for those that have supported me the entire way through. And thank you for being patient through my ups and downs. I love you guys, and I'll